Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. Tonight is no different. I want to welcome our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News across the Berbice River, along the east bank of the Berbice River, all the way to New Amsterdam, Kanji, along the Quarantine Coast, all the way to Oriala and Siparuta in region number 6. All of you who are joining us on television, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners and viewers who are joining us from Freedom Radio Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And perhaps most importantly, to the tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Please press the share button on your phone. Share this live so that all your friends, all your followers can join us in tonight's discussion. Also remember to use the comment section. Use the comment section to indicate your views, pose questions to me, express your comments, even your criticisms, so that we can have an interactive session. As I normally would say, if I don't get an opportunity to read the questions now or to read your comments now, I will read it and I will try to incorporate them or answer them in the next program. I want to welcome Armorel Madramutu, Omadat Singh, Bibi Shabira Hussain, George Garji Sitaram, Soma Bipat, Nick Narain, Babita Kisoon, Empress Bree Blackman Diablo, and K. Watson, and so many of you who are already on. Share the program so that your friends and your followers can join us in tonight's discussion. I begin tonight's program with a heavy heart. I am deeply saddened by the unfortunate and tragic events that have unfolded today in Linden. 2 Guyanese were shot, allegedly by members of the Guyana Police Force. 1 was suspected of committing rape repeatedly on a young woman and was being sought by the police, and in some type of pursuit, apparently he was shot. The other one, unfortunately, was shot in some protest actions that arose out of the first shooting. The president is leading from the front on this matter, has issued a very calm and sobering statement, has expressed his deepest condolences to the family of the deceased persons, and I reiterate the conveyance of my condolences as well. Significantly, the president has assured that no stone will be left unturned, and there will be an independent inquiry and investigation into these shootings. And depending upon that inquiry, actions will be taken that would be appropriate and lawful. The President has also called for calm and has requested persons not to take the law into their own hands and not to be instigated by others. Two wrongs do not equal a right. Damaging public property or damaging private property, assaulting the police officers, behaving in an unruly and unlawful manner will not improve the situation. It will not change anything that has happened. For that matter, it may worsen and aggravate the situation further. So the appeal is to stay calm, be peaceful, be obedient to the laws. I appreciate that passions are flaring. I appreciate the anger. I appreciate the hurt. I appreciate the anguish. However, reacting violently or reacting in the same manner, reacting with anger and doing damage to public property or to the police officers will not bring any change or positive actions to the situation at hand. The government is asking that the investigative processes be allowed to be carried out. What has been promised is an arm's length, independent, impartial investigation. And wherever the chips fall, so be it. So be it. Our government has never been accused of covering up these types of situations. As a matter of policy, we do not subscribe to police brutality. We do not subscribe to violence of any kind. And anyone who is aware of our position on these matters would know that full well. And when you're in government, these things happen. They happen in every country. The issue is ensuring that they are dealt with in a fair, transparent, and lawful manner. And that is what we undertake to do. And you have that commitment from the President himself, the Minister of Home Affairs, and I am speaking obviously as Attorney General. Of course, there are politicians out there who are seeking to take advantage of this situation, and that is unfortunate. This is not a matter to be taken lightly. This is not a matter to be contaminated with or by politics. It is a tragedy. It should have never happened, and it has happened. And we have to do damage control from all angles. And I appeal to political leaders out there who have influence. Don't use that influence to inflame. Don't use that influence to combust. Don't use that influence to aggravate. This is a time to extend leadership. This is a time to take control if you can and use whatever influence you have to bring calm, to bring peace, to reduce tensions, not to increase tensions. And that is the hope that I have for the leaders who are on the ground. Let us look at them carefully and see how they are approaching this matter. One would hope that they would not exploit and exacerbate this matter to advance any political, narrow, partisan end. This is a tragedy from every perspective. From every perspective. So I believe the least I say on this matter is better, because it is still fluid. The situation is still one that is very tense on the ground. There are still persons who are on the road. The police are trying, but they are themselves the subject of assault and onslaught. But they have to uphold the law. They have to uphold the law. And I'm hoping that the political leaders who are there will play their responsible role. The president has already indicated that at the earliest opportunity, he will be meeting the relatives of those who are affected, in particular, the deceased persons. So I am hoping that the situation will return to normalcy in a short while, and the investigative process can begin, and the meeting between the government and the affected parties can begin to see what remedies can be advanced in this very tragic circumstance. So that is what I want to say in relation to what is transpiring at Linden. So we had some interesting occurrences over the weekend in which my name was called, and many people have requested that I respond, and I plan to do so. So as you know, the Mohammeds have been in the news, and there is an ongoing issue between the Mohammeds and the Guyana Revenue Authority. Now, the Mohammeds have brought in certain vehicles and they got certain concessions. GRA always has and always had a power to review the assessment of duties and taxes. It is called a post-audit power. It is in the law, and any businessman who has had any relationship with the Guyana Revenue Authority would know of that power. When I was in private practice, I represented many of the largest importers of motor vehicles into this country, and regularly had to deal with post-audit type situations. So this is nothing new. The GRA going after vehicles that were brought in to the country under different concessions is also not a new phenomenon. Again, persons who follow these events would know that whether it's a remigrant scheme type duty-free concession, or whether it is a duty-free concession or a tax concession granted under a different circumstances, GRA carry out random investigations in relation to these matters. And not even random, they carry out investigations to investigate these matters. It is against that backdrop, therefore, that one has to look at this Mohammed thing. But in Guyana, because of the events that are unfolding, everything now is being viewed from a political lens. So the state can't operate anymore. The state, through its various agencies, as soon as it acts to exercise its statutory and legal powers, it is being accused of being politically directed. And that's what is happening here. That's what is happening here. And this thing started when one of the Mohammeds decided to publish what duties were paid in relation to the importation of these vehicles. He did that voluntarily. And he would have drawn to the attention of the Guyana Revenue Authority that the taxes that were paid or the duties that were paid were far less than should have been paid. And those are the circumstances under which a post-audit exercise is normally triggered. When there is an ex post facto realization that duties were not properly assessed. GRA will have to explain, and some officer who did that assessment will have to explain why the assessment was done in the way that it was done. But that doesn't prevent the GRA from reviewing the situation. Parliament, by law, has given them that power. And that is not a recent power. That is a power that the Guyana Revenue Authority had for decades and has been exercising that power for decades. Businessmen who are listening to me would know what I'm speaking about. It's only the unlearned would have heard of this power for the first time. So there is no political connection, as far as I'm aware, between this exercise or in relation to this exercise. None at all. Now, Mr. Azruddin Mohammed said, and many people sent a clipping of that tape of what he said. He said that Vice President Bharat Jagdev and I spoke to him and said that we will send the GRA, or we will call in the GRA unless he issues a statement to say that he will not run for office. Now, I don't know that he is running for office in the first place. I don't think that he has said that he's running for office. That's the first thing. Secondly, I have never spoken to Mr. Azruddin Mohammed in the presence of Mr. Jagdev. That's the second thing. The impression he gave when he made that statement is that Mr. Jagdev and I were together and we spoke to him. So I've never spoken to him in Mr. Jagdev's presence. Thirdly, since this sanction was imposed, I have never spoken to Mr. Mohammed in person or on the telephone by himself. I met with the Mohammeds a few times after the sanctions. I was required to do so as Attorney General in order to explain to them that under the law, the government would have to take certain measures and take certain precautionary steps to protect the financial system of Guyana and to protect the state against the pernicious consequences of the sanctions. I never met them without their lawyers. Every time I met with them, they had a team of lawyers. And those meetings were in respect of disengaging seamlessly from all government businesses and from all state sectors in which they were involved and their companies were involved. Those meetings were very courteous and cordial. They were accorded all the due processes to which they are entitled. They were treated lawfully, and all the protective safeguards guaranteed to them by law were extended to them. At no time did they ever complain that the government was treating them unfairly, improperly, or unlawfully. And their lawyers, who are always present, can contradict me if they wish. This government has been fair, has been lawful, and has been transparent in all of its dealings with the Mohammeds, in which I was engaged since the sanctions. At no time during those engagements did Mr. Azruddin Mohammed's political ambitions surface in any discussion whatsoever. They were not relevant to anything. I don't even know that there were no discussion of anything to do with his political ambitions, whatever they are. Nothing at all. And as I said, there were lawyers who were present. So I got an opportunity to get an insight into the mentality of this guy when he fabricated such a naked untruth against myself and Mr. Jagdev. Mr. Jagdev no doubt will speak for himself, but he has told me, and I have no reason to doubt Mr. Jagdev, that he never had such a conversation with his gentleman either. But no doubt he will speak for himself. And why would I say that to this gentleman? Let us assume that I even want to say something like that. Why would I say that? So that he can do exactly what he has done? Say it back again? It doesn't make sense. But it shows you that this guy can fabricate and concoct an untruth in such a barefaced manner and say that he has some type of evidence to support it. Well, hopefully he will produce the evidence. But that was the engagement that the government has had with them since the sanctions were imposed. And as Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, it fell as part of my responsibility to ensure that there is a proper disengagement and that there is a proper transition of their businesses and their business interest away from the state, in order that the public interest and the state financial system is not affected by the sanctions imposed and the consequences which can flow from those sanctions. As Attorney General, I will encourage everyone who would like to enter the political realm to do so. That is their right and freedom. That is what democracy is about. I play a role every day in ensuring that Guyana continues to maintain high democratic credentials. I will not sully that and that reputation for anybody, certainly not the Mohammeds. So just for clarity, the Mohammeds that I have met is Mr. Azruddin Mohammed and Mr. Shell Mohammed with their lawyers. Those were the persons that I met with since the sanctions, and I stated already the purpose of those meetings. So I hope that would put that matter to rest in relation to any role I had in this thing with customs and so on. A complete untruth. Anybody who knows me would know that I am not fascinated by vehicles. That's not one of my passions. So I don't even know what type of vehicles this guy has. It's not my thing. Lamborghini and whatever vehicles they have, it wouldn't feature in my psyche. It's not something that I am impressed by. So these things about vehicles and so on, well, they don't apply to me at all. So I see that GCOM has not renewed the contract of its legal officer. I am not surprised by that decision. In fact, no one should be surprised by that decision. This lawyer went to court and argued a case and put forward a position contrary to the instructions of his client, and could have caused tremendous public damage to this country and could have put this country into a constitutional crisis. Now, if a lawyer has a conflict with the instructions of his client, his duty is, in my view, to try to resolve that conflict with his client. And if the conflict cannot be resolved, if their positions are irreconcilable, then his duty is to say to that client, well, I cannot represent your cause. And he is to give up that brief. What he cannot do, in my humble view, is tell that client that I will represent your cause, and goes to court and does something different. Worse yet, represent the cause of the other side. And that is why on many occasions, and I'm happy that the press was there, on many occasions, the court was forced to ask if the lawyer is acceding to the applicant's case, the applicant being Carol Joseph. The court was forced to ask that question on more than 3 occasions on the last time the case was called. In fact, because of this lawyer's position, the case had to be recalled for additional arguments. The chief elections officer issued a public statement repudiating this lawyer's submission to the court. And when the case was called again on the next occasion, the lawyer stood up and continued to argue a position in defiance of the position of his client. In fact, he became even more rabid than he was before. He now began to depart with his client violently, even arguing for 2 lists to be used for the impending elections. When all the years we have been using 1 list, and he knows his client is preparing 1 list. He sits there every day and he sees claims and objections is being done in relation to 1 list. And that the election, that his client is preparing to hold an elections and preparing a machinery to hold an election with 1 list, a regional and national elections, and goes to the court and say that 2 lists must be used, 1 list for regional election and 1 list for national elections. We have to be very thankful that we had a mature court, and we had a court that understood the legal issues, a court that had ruled on these matters before. Or else he would have put the entire election and electoral process in a tailspin. And I tried several times during the hearing to guide the young man. And he was so aloof and arrogant. So I am not surprised that they did not renew his contract. And if the APNU and whoever supports him, let them get a lawyer. Let them get a lawyer whom they instruct to do one thing but goes to court and do something else and supports the PPP, and see if they will not fire him. Let them send a lawyer to court to argue a particular case, but the lawyer goes and argues something else. And let me see if they will not fire the lawyer. This young man is the architect of his own design. I have no problem if lawyers want to have a novel position. You can do that, but get your client's permission. Don't represent public authorities and constitutional bodies, because these bodies and these authorities can affect the public interest and the public good and the future of this country. When you want to have your peculiar idiosyncratic views, as I said somewhere else, go and write a book, go and write an article, or go and give a lecture somewhere. Don't play with a country's future. So I support the decision not to renew that contract, because he would have caused this country untold damage during election time. If that is the type of advice Jajika would have gotten in the heat of the moment during election time, when tensions are high. When tensions are high in this country, we already had the experience of a chief elections officer that the highest court of the land had to label a lone ranger. Don't, we must never lose sight of our experiences. The Caribbean Court of Justice had to reprimand and admonish the former chief elections officer and say in very emphatic language that he's not a lone ranger. This legal officer also is not a lone ranger. He has to act on the instructions of GCOM. And people who can't understand that they have to act on the instructions of the authority, then they have no place in working for that authority or working in an organization. They are dangerous to the public good. Since I am speaking on that matter, let me say that the Chief Justice, in handing down her decision, directed that the parties agree on costs. If the parties, and said that if the parties, or rather not said, ruled that if the parties failed to agree on costs, then costs must be assessed. What the Chief Justice means or meant was that if the parties can't agree, then an application must be made to the court for the court to assess the costs, which is a long process but will yield a substantial sum of money as costs. Why? Because these issues the Chief Justice highlighted were decided on more than one occasion previously. It was decided by the court in 2019, as I keep saying, in the case which I had filed at that time in the name of Christopher Ram, and then this very Carol Joseph, coming up to the local government elections, had filed a case raising the same issue. And both of those cases dealt with the issue, and the court felt, and properly so, that these issues were finally laid to rest. Carol Joseph comes back again in 2024 and files the identical case. Well, a case raising the identical issue. I have neither the time nor the energy to spend explaining what that ruling is. I have done so too many times. I see Alexander is running his own narrative. I don't have an inclination to respond to Alexander anymore. I see that they have said that they will appeal the case. Well, I'm looking forward for the appeal. But significantly, we sent a letter today requesting costs in the sum of $3 million. If they fail to respond, then we will approach the court and I will ask the court to assess costs somewhere in excess of $6 million. We cannot keep wasting precious judicial time and precious judicial resources in relitigating issues that have already been litigated and settled conclusively. So, the Chief Justice also made a comment which I see has made the news, and the comment is, she spoke about the state of disarray that the election laws are in. Now, a lot of work has already been done in addressing this disarray. The Chief Justice had expressed a similar sentiment in 2019 when we were arguing the Christopher Ram case. Since 2019 to now, in particular in 2023, when we did the amendments to the Representation of the People Act and the National Registration Act, we also did a massive undertaking of revising all the different pieces of electoral and election laws and putting them in their respective places. And they had to go essentially in the two principal legislation. So you had a set of laws dating back to 1993, amending the Registration Act. And some of them were repealed along the way. And some of the amendments were amended. And then you had another set of amendments amending the Representation of the People Act. And they also, over the years, were amended. The amendments were amended. And then we passed, in 2002, an Election Laws Amendment Act, which was another piece of legislation of some substance relating to elections. While we were doing the amendments of 2022, what we also did was to move all those different amendments, study them, and put them into the principal acts where they were supposed to be. So a lot, and they are there now. So we have a ROPA that is very thick, and that contains all the amendments to ROPA as of 2022. We have a National Registration Act that is very thick, and that has all the amendments to the National Registration Act as of 2022. So a lot of what the Chief Justice has described as in disarray has actually been organized and is now very easily accessible in the manner and set out where they should be. But the exercise is not yet completed. And that's why the revised edition of the laws are not yet published. So the Chief Justice really did not see the work that we have done so far. She's still reading the loose pieces because we have not made it official. The other aspect of it has to do with local government election laws. Those laws, we have begun the work to put them together as well. Bring all the amendments into the respected local authorities' election laws. But they are not as many, and that will be concluded definitely before the next local government elections. But a lot of the laws that were in disarray are now organized and are where they should be in the relevant principal pieces of legislation. The e-ticketing system in relation to traffic offenses is up and running. And I see the statistics are staggering. Up to the end of the first day, it already accumulated over 150 tickets. I don't know where it is currently. So it's up and running, and persons would have been receiving their tickets already. Tickets are going to be sent through the system to MMS, WhatsApp, email addresses, registered post to addresses, and hand-delivered. It would state, as I said earlier, the date and time where you can appear in court if you wish to contest the offense. If not, where you can go and pay the tickets. The tickets can be paid at monogram locations. It can be paid at the courts, and I believe some other places. If you do not pay the tickets and you do not attend court, then the case will call in your absence. An arrest warrant can be issued for you, or the case can be proceeded ex parte and you can be convicted in your absence. Your license can be suspended. So the consequences are firm and drastic in some cases. And your license will remain suspended until you liquidate your indebtedness. The database will generate tickets only in relation to the registered owner of the vehicle. So if you, the registered owner, give someone else to drive your vehicle, you will get the ticket, not the driver, because the database doesn't have the driver in it. So when you get the ticket, you will have to go to the court to explain that you are not the driver and who the driver was. And that driver will have to also be named as a defendant, and he will be issued with a ticket as well. That is how it is done in the United States and in other countries where the ticketing system is being employed. I think the cost for the speeding ticket is $7,500, and I believe the seat belt offense is $5,500. So please ensure that you drive with due observance of the speed limits in the locality in which you are driving. Speed limits vary. There are sensors and cameras that will assist you in recognizing your rate of speed. You would have seen those sensors reading your speed as you approach them. Well, you should use that as a guide so that when you approach the camera, you will not be recorded at a speed excessive of the speed limit. Oh, I have the number here. 259 speed violations were recorded in 12 hours. 259 in 12 hours. Well, I think we have reached about 36 hours. So if you multiply that by 3, you can get a fair estimate of what the numbers are that this thing is generating. So let me look at ban the use of telephone when driving. I believe that is already an offense. You ought not to be driving and speaking on the telephone. That is already an offense. You have to have your, you have equipment now that you can use. So that I got that from the comment section actually. So let me see what else. Speed kills. Well, we know that one of the main reason for accidents in Guyana, as established by the empirical data, is speed. And one of the main causes, or one of the main results of speed, is alcohol consumption. There's a connection between alcohol consumption and speeding, a deep connection. And that is why we have made so many amendments to our intoxicating liquor law. We have amended the Road Traffic, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act. We have increased penalties. We have provided for disqualifications, temporary and permanent, in respect of driver's license. We have created new offenses, including motor manslaughter. We have increased the penalties substantially. We have imposed responsibilities on owners of bars in relation to whom they sell intoxicating liquors to. So we have done a lot, but we have to do much more. We still have an unusually high incidence of traffic carnage or carnage on our roads. We have a too small population to have this high rate of fatalities on the roadways of our country. So I'm looking at your comments to see any issues that you want me to address. Somebody saying alcohol and gasoline do not mix. Well, that is true. So a lot of people have drawn my attention to a comment that Melissa Atwell has made on my page. And that is the boldness. Coming on my page to comment. And the comment is that she is unaware of the legal proceedings which I have filed against her. So she has not received the legal proceedings. Well, she can make contact with my lawyers. They are handling the matter. They hired a firm in Manhattan who are licensed to serve legal documents. They have reported to me that they went to their apartment, the address, and the putative husband of Miss Atwell was there. I think the gentleman's name is Holder. He received the documents, and Miss Atwell was somewhere in the apartment. Maybe when it had her at Louisiana, the ICE people may have taken the documents. I don't know. But the documents are supposed to be in the apartment. The putative husband should know, because I'm told that he came out to receive the documents while she was in there. That's the information I have, Ms. Atwell. I hope you make good use of it. The case is going on in Guyana, though. That's what you should know if you wish to follow up. It's a matter for you. I see the WPA is issuing statements about elections. Now, they're saying that the WPA, I see, and the news carrying this as a story, that the WPA is issuing a statement saying that GCOM is not ready for elections. Is the WPA even a political party? Why the press is even bothering with the WPA? The WPA is a grouping, a fringed element grouping of some old men. I don't know what they do. They don't live in Guyana. The leader of the WPA lives somewhere in Arizona. He comes to Guyana, I don't know, 2 times a year, and he gets to comment on the readiness of GCOM for elections and saying that GCOM is not ready, and and that is the press taking these people seriously. The press, the WPA don't have 5 members. I think they have 5 members actually. If they call a meeting tomorrow, I don't think they could get 5 people other than the membership, and the membership is 5. I don't even think Rupert Rupnarayan is part of the WPA anymore. It is 5 persons I can name on my hand. 5 persons. I think 3 of the 5 persons live in Guyana and 2 live overseas. I think so. That is the WPA. And they're issuing a statement about whether elections should be held in Guyana and who is ready and who is not ready. And the press is making that news. Waste of time. This is where my operator is signaling to me that we are approaching program time. I want to thank you very much for spending the past hour with me. We have covered a number of important issues. And I want to close by again reiterating how deeply saddened I am by the events that have taken place in Linden. My deepest condolences and sympathies go out to the families of the deceased persons. The government will meet with them in due course, and certainly the investigation which is promised will be held, and it will be done very transparently, and it will be independently conducted and in accordance with the highest professional standards. That is the undertaking from the President, and no doubt we will ensure that that undertaking is discharged. I want to thank you once again. Please enjoy the rest of the evening, and I'll see you next week. Take care, and may God continue to bless you. Thank you.